Do you tell everybody everything? Or are there some things you just don't tell?
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're looking at celebrities who learned that they weren't biologically related to a parent who raised them.
Then I found out that my sister was really my mother.
Sarah Polley. Acting since childhood, Sarah Polley has branched out as a writer and director, winning an Oscar for Women Talking.
Would it be a good idea, before we list the pros and cons of staying in fighting, to talk about exactly what it is we're fighting for?
Yet many would argue that Polley's best and most personal film to date is the 2012 documentary Stories We Tell. Before reaching adulthood, Polley lost her mother to cancer. She was raised by her father Michael, although it was evident to Polley's siblings that the two didn't physically resemble each other.
And that struck me, and then I saw him with the red hair, and I really did think, I really thought it was true.
So at some point, I think I did start to believe it was true and thought someone should say something to you.
It wasn't until years later that Polley learned her mother had an affair with Harry Gulkin, who produced the 1975 drama Lies My Father Told Me. Gulkin was Polley's biological father, as a DNA test confirmed in 2006. Polley initially kept this information private, but eventually decided to share her story.
Then you said, "Do you still think so?" And I said, after talking to you and looking at you for close to 3 hours, yes. I said, "What do you think?" And you said, "Yeah, I think so too."
Mariska Hargitay. Mr. Universe bodybuilder Mickey Hargitay and Playboy playmate Jane Mansfield had 3 children, Mickey Jr., Zoltan and Mariska. By the time Mariska came along, the couple was estranged, their marriage almost officially over. Mariska was only a toddler when her mother died in a car crash.
I was 3 years old when my mom died. And I don't really have any memories of her.
Mickey and his new wife, Ellen Ciano, raised Mariska and her siblings. About a decade before breaking out as Olivia Benson on Law & Order SVU, Mariska unraveled the mystery of her parentage. She discovered that her biological father was Brazilian singer-comedian Nelson Sardelli, whom she met in her 30s.
And he told me the whole story. That was 30 years ago. And I've kept it a secret ever since.
While the actress developed a bond with Sardelli, she kept the Hargitay name and regards Mickey as her parent. She finally shared this revelation with the world in 2025.
It's been so beautiful to realize this thing that I was so afraid of or made me feel less than. Now I came out of it and go, oh, well, I have 2 moms and 2 dads.
Jennette McCurdy. This former actress had a more than difficult relationship with her mum, Deborah McCurdy, as detailed in her memoir, I'm Glad My Mum Died. Deborah went to the grave with a secret. Her husband, Mark McCurdy, wasn't Jennette's biological father.
A year and a half after my mom died, who I thought was my father told me that he was not actually my biological father.
2 of Jennette's siblings, Scott and Dustin, weren't his biological children either. Mark kept the secret from them, but after he started dating Karen, Deborah's high school best friend, she compelled him to come clean. Jennette learned that her biological father is a jazz musician named Andrew, reportedly Andy Martin.
People be like, oh, dad, well, my dad was okay, but mom is untouchable.
Or even with dads, you can be like, oh, my dad never showed up, and people are like, oh, mine neither.
She'd attend one of his concerts with a few friends, including her iCarly co-star, Miranda Cosgrove. Although Andrew knew his daughter existed, he kept his distance in case Mark wasn't aware.
I went to meet him, and we had a really great kind of first conversation, and then we saw each other for maybe 3 to 4 months, once a week probably, for that amount of time. And then it got to a place where that one felt a little strange also.
Priscilla Presley. Before marrying Elvis Presley, she was Priscilla Wagner. And Priscilla Beaulieu. Her biological father was James Wagner, a US Navy pilot who died in a plane crash a few months after Priscilla was born.
Tragedy struck when Priscilla was 6 months old, as her father, Wagner, lost his life in a plane crash while returning home on leave.
3 years later, Priscilla's mother, Anne Lillian, remarried Paul Beaulieu of the US Air Force. By the time she turned 5, Priscilla's last name was changed from Wagner to Beaulieu. For a period, Priscilla was under the impression that Bollier was her biological father while going through a box of mementos. She found a folded American flag traditionally given to widows of soldiers.
I saw the photograph, my mother and this strange man. And me when I was a baby.
She also uncovered a photo of herself and her mother with Wagner, reading "Mummy, Daddy, Priscilla" on the back. Priscilla immediately called her mother, who told her everything.
I meant to tell you this a million times, and Daddy's not my real father, is he? Oh, Zilla.
Liv Tyler. It's no secret that Liv Tyler is the daughter of Steven Tyler. When this actress was born, though, her name was Liv Rundgren. In addition to the Aerosmith frontman, her mother, Playboy playmate Bebe Buell, was involved with rock musician Todd Rundgren. Buell became pregnant with Tyler's child.
Everybody always says, every interview about me, they say that I'm the daughter of a rock star and I grew up on tour. Right. But Todd Rundgren was my dad when I was younger. I had both of them.
Due to Tyler's substance issues, Buell told people that Rundgren was the father. While Rundgren suspected that Liv wasn't biologically his, he nonetheless felt this kid needed a dad. Even after Rundgren and Buell broke up following Liv's birth, he continued to look out for her.
It's funny because people only ever talk about Steven and they always tell all these stories, but he's been such a beautiful, wonderful influence in my life.
Well, he was your father for those years, and in a way he still is your father, of course, yeah.
Upon meeting Tyler a few years later, Liv started connecting the dots until the truth came out. As far as Liv is concerned, she has 2 dads.
Well, I was 8 when I found out he was my dad, but yeah, I have 2 fathers, kind of, yes. I was raised by Todd Rundgren.
Kerry Washington.
All these kind of, I think, isms and behaviors stemmed from me not being comfortable in my body. And I think some of that was being born into a lie.
We wouldn't call it a scandal, but it was a shocker when Kerry Washington learned that her father, Earl, wasn't related to her by blood. Washington made this discovery through the show Finding Your Roots. If you're thinking, I don't remember that episode, it's because Washington's parents wouldn't do a DNA test.
Born of a sperm donor. Would that show up in the DNA testing? And Skip said yes.
Yeah, it is.
It would.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're not going to do the show, thank you so much. And he said, whoa, 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 whoa.
Finding Your Roots host Henry Louis Gates Jr. nevertheless got in touch with Washington's parents, who told him everything. Gates advised them to be honest with their daughter. That's what they did, telling Washington that due to fertility issues, her mother, Valerie, used a sperm donor.
And they sat me down and my mom said, I know that it took us a long time to have you because that was part of the narrative of how I came to be. She said, but we used a sperm donor.
While surprising, it strangely made sense to Washington, who doesn't view her father differently. She's always loved him, and that truth has only reinforced that affection.
My dad loves me so much, and I have been able to now return that love because it hasn't changed. If anything, it's deeper.
Sean Astin. Sean Astin's life is a bit like a gender-flipped Mamma Mia. At the time of his conception, Sean's mother, Oscar winner Patty Duke, was involved with 3 men: Desi Arnaz Jr., Michael Tell, and John Astin.
And there was also a father who dedicated himself to diffusing situations and reassuring these young men.
Upon realizing she was pregnant, Duke married Tell, got an annulment less than 2 weeks later, told Arnaz that he was the father, and eventually married Astin, who adopted the then 1-year-old Sean. When Sean was a teenager, Duke told him that Arnaz was his father.
Tabloid headlines claimed the unmarried 23-year-old star was carrying the love child of her 17-year-old boyfriend, Desi Arnaz Jr.
By his 20s, Sean got a paternity test, concluding once and for all that Tell was his dad. Although he considers John Astin to be his father, Sean still grew close with Arnaz, Tell, and his stepfather, Michael Pierce. So that's 4 dads.
Because I was terrible at math, we'd do the times tables together, and I could never do 6 times 8, which is 48, and my dad would be like, 6 times 8, I'm 48!
Eric Clapton. This blues musician was raised to believe that his parents were Rose and Jack Clapp. In reality, Eric's mother was Patricia Clapton, who was said to be his eldest sister. Rose was really his grandmother, while Jack was his step-grandfather. Giving birth when she was a teenager, Patricia was absent for much of Eric's upbringing. He was around 9 when the truth surfaced.
She left when I was very, very young, and I was raised by my grandparents.
Eric's father, Edward Fryer, was almost a decade his mother's senior. Edward had been a soldier during World War II, returning to Canada once it ended. Eric never met his biological father, who died from leukemia in 1985.
She met this Canadian. He was over here in England, in the village, and it was a one-night stand.
This lack of closure was among the inspirations for the song My Father's Eyes, which Clapton first performed in 1992 and officially released in 1998.
How will I know him when I look in my father's eyes?
Demi Moore. When Demi Moore was a young teenager, she found her parents' marriage certificate, but the dates didn't add up. They married in 1963. Moore was born a year earlier. This put Moore on a path of revelations. Her mother, Virginia King, had a brief marriage to Air Force pilot Charles Harmon, who ran out on his wife and unborn child.
And then this stunning revelation that the man you loved as your father was not your biological father.
3 months after giving birth, King married Dan Gwines, who raised Moore as his own. Despite their blood connection, Moore never formed a genuine relationship with Harmon, considering Gwines her real father.
I made up about that I wasn't wanted or that I don't deserve to be here.
When her father leaves, she's responsible for her unstable mother.
Tragically, not long after King and Gwines divorced for the second time, he took his life. Moore later had a falling out with her mother, although they made peace before her passing.
And to belong. And when I look and find the compassion for my mother, I know that in that, I then open the pathway for my children to have compassion for me.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson and Eric Clapton have a surprising amount in common, at least in terms of parentage. Like Clapton, Nicholson learned that his parents were his grandparents, and his older sister June was his mother.
His real mother, June, he believed was his sister. For the rest of their lives, his mother and grandmother would keep up this deception.
Where Clapton was still young when he found out, Nicholson was in his late 30s. By then, his mother and grandmother had both been deceased for several years. Nicholson didn't learn the truth from family, but rather Time magazine's research team.
The magazine discovered that Jack's mother had all along been his grandmother, while his real mother had pretended to be his sister, and a man called Don Ferchillo Rose was claiming to be his father.
As for his father, it's been wildly theorized that June became pregnant from an affair with Donald Ferchillo, a married showman. Yet this remains unconfirmed. In any case, Nicholson said it was dramatic when everything came to light, although it wasn't traumatizing. If anything, he was grateful to know.
You know, you don't know exactly who or what or why you are, and I just felt if I kept that to an absolute minimum, I wouldn't be living with that the rest of my life.
Can you think of any other celebrities with surprising parental backgrounds? Let us know in the comments.
Visit me, we run around, we swim, we read. Sure, this is fascinating to you all.